All right, pre-com punk was here. I just want to point out real quick before we start this whole thing. The script was written and the audio was recorded back in fucking August or September of 2025. So this is, slightly out of date. Like there are a couple parts in the beginning and the end where I talk about like things I want to see in Black Ops 7, like as if it hasn't come out yet. So I just wanted to, start the video with this saying that, yeah, I know this is super late. Who'd have thunk me putting out a video super late? Rapid Day coming soon. Yeah, so I just want to point that out. There might be some inconsistencies with the, way I'm talking for certain parts, but I thought the concept was fun enough that I could pretty much do it anytime. So I thought I might as well, post it anyways. So take it away, Past Bunkless. In November of 2017, due to an, in my opinion, misguided attempt to right the ship, COD returned to its roots and released the first boots on the ground Call of Duty in 3 years. And with that genre change came a new, old philosophy for maps. Gone were the weirdly slanted sideways walls hanging over death pits or mind-bending map backdrops. In its place, we got good old-fashioned bombed-out villages and towns, high tower POIs, and tons of 2 to 3 floor buildings lit just dark enough that you can't tell if that object in the corner is a chair or an enemy. Not to say I was unhappy to see these types of maps return, or that all the maps in the Boots v2 era were terrible. I can name tons of maps between the World War II and BO6 era that are genuine bangers that could stand toe-to-toe or even surpass the classics. Which, just to spark some controversy real quick if anyone ever watches this, BO4's competitive maps clear the entirety of Modern Warfare 2009's map pool. Don't fucking at me. Anyways, disregarding my lame attempt at rage bait, even though the new Boots maps were great in their own way, I honestly missed the vibe and map design of the Jetpack era. I kinda always assumed that if I wanted to relive some of my favorites, I would have to either wait for an off-season throwback tournament or reset up my Expo. But luckily, due to the passage of time and the COD cycle hitting Mach speeds during the Warzone era, Jetpack CODs are back in vogue, and in Season 4 of Black Ops 6, the Black Ops 3 launch map Fringe returned. Not only was I excited to see the return of a great Black Ops 3 map, but to me it also completely opened up the pool of what maps are viable for remakes now in COD. It kinda blows my mind that it took until Black Ops 6 for this to happen too. Assuming this didn't already happen in the Vanguard season, which I was totally checked out for 90% of it, so disregard this whole part if that's true. Back in AW, they had a playlist with no jetpacks, and even though I was all in on the movement system for that game, I still played 1 to 2 matches just to see how it felt, and I don't remember the few maps I played being especially bad with no advanced movement. And with the old school COD map remakes basically being boiled down to the same 4 Treyarch maps and the same 2 IW ones, this seems like a no-brainer to keep banking on that sweet, sweet nostalgia. But now that the seal has finally been broken, the potential return of all these underappreciated maps, with tweaks if necessary to complement the different movement mechanics, has me so excited for the future of DLC maps and CODs. And honestly, my only outlet for excitement around COD is this channel, so I thought I'd make a quick list of Jetpack era maps that I'd love to see remade. For some of these maps, I'm going to suggest small changes to make them more playable on Boots games, but keep in mind I'm not a level designer, so take my tweaks with as many pinches of salt as possible. Finally, to make this as fair and balanced as possible, and to counteract my intense Treyarch fanboyism, I'm going to pick 2 from each Jetpack COD. If I didn't do this, I already know my list would be 90% Black Ops 3 and AW with maybe 3 IW picks. As you'll see later in this commentary, I have nothing against IW, I just know how insanely biased I am. Either way, now that I'm done with the 40 minutes of prerequisite information, let's start where any normal person would. At the very end. 2016's Infinite Warfare is a weird game for me because I spent most of the first half of it only in zombies. I played the MP a little bit, but with no friends really wanting to play it, and my Destiny obsession arguably being at its peak, I wasn't really logging on. However, due to the CWL season that year being kind of insane, no bias I swear, and the doldrums that were the summer months, I eventually got sucked back in and played it pretty consistently up until World War II's launch. One thing IW maps really had going for it over BO3 and AW is that it got way crazier with its locations. Sure, BO3 had Infection, with Keratin being on the side of the map, or Micro with its giant food and shootable flies, and AW had Site 244, which was pretty cool, being a crashed alien ship right next to Mount Rushmore, that's, interesting. But a lot of the base maps especially were still just military base or urban location, but make it futuristic. On the other hand, IW came out of the gate insanely strong with its locales. Maps took place on other planets/moons like Mars or Europa, or in places like a broken down ship next to a fucking black hole. God, this game was so cool. And to me at least, that definitely helped make a lot of these maps way more memorable than they would be normally. And I know you don't play the MP match in the skybox, but I also don't think it's controversial to say that I'd rather be going to war in a ship surrounding a collapsing star in space than just a bunch of huts in the desert. So when it came to picking maps for this game, I wanted to get a mixture of the sci-fi interplanetary setting while also focusing on, in my opinion, the maps that would actually translate well to a Boots game. I also looked at Fringe as a template for what Jetpack map attributes the devs deemed worthy enough to earn a map remake. To me, those features included things like a pretty average/non-sci-fi setting, and the movement aspects of the map being, negligible at best. So no bottomless pits or out-of-bound lanes, basically. And I'll fully admit I didn't follow these rules for all my choices, but my pick number 1 matches this line of thinking so well that I would not be surprised at all to see this in Modern Warfare 4. I picked the epitome of America Town USA, the slice of 50s nostalgia for the families of the future, Throwback. Frankly, I think this is one of the more obvious choices. It's got an easily transferable aesthetic, forgettable jetpack engagement spots, and the classic 3-lane structure. Side note, it also had one of the best uplink plays in CWL history, so if we could get some graffiti or something of that legendary moment in the remake, that would be great. But jokes aside, if I had to change one thing about it, I would probably mess with the lane that has a street going under the bridge. I don't really know how low ground that low would work in a boots COD when there's no fast way to make it up, but at the same time, since you kind of needed advanced movement to get to the spots where you could safely look down that lane, it might be a self-solving problem once the jetpacks are off. Anyways, for IW map pick number 2, whether the UNSA wanted it or not, I decided on the Martian Munitions Factory, also known as Crusher. First off, compared to Throwback, this map is much more close quarters, which would help it fit right in with most modern maps, at least the main ones people like to play. This map runs into a little problem with its death pit wall run section on the outside of the lane, but I can't see how just putting a floor there wouldn't make it 100% playable, if not more chaotic. Other than that change, and maybe some stacked boxes around the map for easier traversal, and to keep the same map flow it has in IW, I think Crusher would fit right in a modern day COD. I've been thinking this since about 2017, 2018, but Infinite Warfare really is the best example of a COD that actually plays great if you don't have a million little bitches in your ear telling you it's nasty. Obviously it had problems like any other COD, cough cough skinny bot, but looking back at all its maps and playing it a little again has reminded me that trusting the general public or even other fans on COD opinions is like trusting a conspiracy theorist on historical events. Moving on from my unresolved trauma from 2016, let's take a look at arguably the most well-received of the 3 jetpack CODs. In my opinion, Black Ops 3 was the only COD of the 3 that used all of its mechanics to the fullest advantage. Every base map felt designed from the ground up to get the most out of its wall running, super jumps, and swimming, which was massively upgraded compared to its introduction in AW. Even the new gimmick of Specialists also felt uniquely made with the advanced movement and map design in mind. There was honestly nothing better back in the day than taking a lower wall run to get around a group of enemies and then popping grab spikes or whipping out the Annihilator and just taking out a whole team. The complete package of all these mechanics working together perfectly helped make BO3, in my opinion, one of the more perfect CODs, if you could even call a COD game perfect, which is debatable. But now that I'm done gassing up Cherry for the 10,000th time, when looking at maps to choose for this game, I tried to look at ones where the wall running only involved out-of-map stuff. So things like the route under the platform on Redwood or the inside section of Breach, which led me to 2 maps that follow that rule while staying close to the fringe template I mentioned earlier. Map pick number 3 is one that you might not agree with off the bat, but eventually you'll see where I'm coming from. It's Aquarium. I like this map a lot because to me, besides maybe Hunted, it's one of the only maps that do a water section right in Black Ops 3, and that could best be shown off on the shark bait side of the map. The water is supplementary to the lane without being too extra. The lane isn't a goddamn ocean like Hacienda, which worked in Black Ops 3 for me, but not in Black Ops 6 for some reason. A commentary idea for later. The water lane also isn't some secret bullshit lane like the one on Hydro in Modern Warfare 22. It's in my opinion the best way to do a non-traditional styled path in a COD map, and I'd love to see it back in modern CODs, just as an example for how to make fun varied lanes and maps again. The setting also helps too because, I mean, what year could you possibly set a COD where an aquarium wouldn't be the best place to go? Hopefully they never bring back that concept of a COD set in Roman times. Maybe it's the hipster coming out of me, but I also like the fact that it's a map that not a lot of people are probably going to think about when it comes to Black Ops 3. Like, I love seeing Raid and Scrapyard and Nuketown return for the 12th year in a row, but COD as a series is older than most of the people playing / complaining about it, and honestly, it should brag about that a little bit. That being said, I am still susceptible to choosing the most popular map and just going with that. So I'm about to go from a semi-forgotten map to probably one of the most obvious choices. I'm talking about evac. I chose this map not only because I think it looks good and plays well, or because it's one of my personal favorites, but also because I want to use it to sort of break one of the rules I set at the beginning of this section. I think an evac remake could be a really good time to incorporate one of the out-of-bounds sections that would probably be ignored if redone. In the upper section of the map on the Black Ops spawn side, there's a spot on this map that I honestly always forget about. A little platform slightly below the buildings that leads directly to the middle of the map. I think preserving this little bit of advanced movement would be kind of cool and a good way to keep the vibe of the map intact. Now, obviously, the bigger problem is giving people with no thrusters the ability to go back up, but that doesn't seem like a problem a couple more ladders / platforms couldn't fix. You could do that, or maybe keeping it as sort of like a one-way route, which would be kind of cool, and in my opinion, a new thing for COD maps. As far as I remember, Editor Punk was helping me out here. But even if they just completely cut out that section of the map, I still think evac would slot pretty well in the landscape of modern CODs. With a Black Ops 3 map being the catalyst for this whole commentary and another Treyarch title being on the horizon, I really hope they continue to pluck these maps from Black Ops 3 and put them into future titles. Like I mentioned before, I think if any maps out of the box were ready to be transferred over, it would be these ones. Moving on from what the public considers peak to what I consider peak. I've made it no secret how much I love AW. It took everything I adored about past CODs and enhanced it tenfold, while also being the beginning of the skill gap widening that was seen over the Jetpack era. I've been saying this for a decade now, but I believe that if AW's gameplay wasn't tied to the whipping boy of the industry, it would be a universally loved series that people would instead bring up positively as a cudgel to beat on COD. When looking specifically at this game's base maps, I feel like they were designed with the idea that at any moment Bobby Kotick could storm into the Sledgehammer office and rip the jetpack off the players. Not to say that none of the maps lend themselves to jetpacks, or that there aren't vantage points on the maps that would be lost if the boots were forced back to the ground. In fact, a bunch of launch maps seem to follow the same philosophy of cut a map in half and then raise or lower one side of the map to make it more traversable with jetpacks. See Retreat, Comeback, Instinct, etc. But on the bright side, in my opinion, that works way more in favor now that we're very likely permanently back on the ground. So even though I felt like I kind of had the pick of the litter when it came to this game's maps, I still tried to follow the if it ain't fringe, don't break it thought process, and left out any maps with extra stuff like Defender with its big wave or Recovery with its volcano. So for pick number 5, we're taking a trip to Motor City. I'm talking about the classic map Detroit. I would love to ask someone who worked on AW if this was one of the first maps they designed for this game, because it really feels like it to me. It's a simple layout, no advanced movement required to traverse the map easily, and it's an urban Detroit environment. All of these factors make it, in my opinion, the perfect nostalgic addition to modern day COD. It's also relatively smaller compared to other maps in AW, which would fit perfectly with the size of modern day maps, obviously. Though to be fair, it could just feel smaller with jetpacks. Honestly, even the few advanced movement sections of this map could be translated to boots easily with the tried and true additions of some ladders / boxes or a ramp. Honestly, I feel like I'm somehow underselling Detroit as a map here, but what I really do like about it is its straightforwardness. No extra routes, no POIs that tower over the map, just simple lanes for whoever has the better movement / gun skill. I won't lie, I also chose this map a little selfishly, since the next map pick is basically the exact opposite in terms of complexness. And that pick is Terrace, kinda like Evac. I chose this map over arguably better choices because I just think it's neat. Mainly its nighttime settings, unique structures, and a couple of nostalgic memories of good games on this map. It does fall into the chop and drop map design that I was talking about earlier, and that could definitely lead to some weird gameplay once the packs are off, but I decided to include it anyways because A, I feel like the lower pool area not only has enough bonus routes to make it safely traversable, but also has an abundance of cover to bob and weave through if you're getting railed by someone head glitching the catwalk. And B, since the map is basically split into 3 lanes, with each lane being higher or lower than the other, without the jetpacks, it kind of cuts the lanes off into their own sections, which would hopefully fight the I keep getting shot from above me problem that this map would have otherwise. Honestly, my biggest worry about this map being ported over is that it's still a night map. Historically, certain night maps we've gotten have been plagued with realistic lighting, making the maps, in my opinion, extremely unfun to play. Looking at you, Hacienda, Twilight, and Miami. So with that being a probability, I am worried, but to counter my doomerism, we've also had alright night maps recently, like Fugitive and Black Ops 6 and Berlin and Vanguard that were fine. So I'd say it's a 50-50 shot. Other than that though, I feel like this map would be the most volatile of the two from AW, just for the verticality angle. That being said though, if it worked out, I feel like it'd be a pretty unique map that would be fun to play. And that's the end of the list. All 3 jetpack odds obviously have a ton of other potentially better options than what I mentioned here. And while I could rapid fire my honorable mentions, I think I'll let Editor Punk slowly roll those maps across the screen while I waffle for a bit. For the longest time, these 3 games were considered black marks on the COD franchise, frequently cited by casual fans and thumbless haters of fun as the catalyst for the downward swing of the series. I never believed that talking point. These games had problems, obviously, problems even I bitched and moaned about at the time, but the total contempt that most of the fanbase gave these 3 during their time has honestly always rubbed me the wrong way. And now that the pendulum seems to be slowly swinging more positively towards them, I think it's the best time to take the aspects that I think most people can agree on were fine with these games, the maps, and bring them forward. These past few years have had maps that were so hit or miss that an entire commentary ecosystem was able to sprout up, including this video. And even though games with forever remakes sounds like a kind of grim, inevitable future for COD, until we start seeing more consistent bangers, it seems like the only way. And if that is the future for map pools of these CODs, then throwing in some less appreciated maps from the jetpack CODs would go a long way for me personally to spice it up, while still, hitting the nostalgic land that COD does best. Plus, at this point, I'd honestly take a poorly translated jetpack COD map over the 5th Raider Scrapyard remake. Anyways, that was a commentary, and this is Mr. Punkquist from Heavy and Moonbound signing out. I will see you guys next time.